everybody, welcome to the party. If you are saying to yourself, I want to spend my Tuesday night at an online party for Swedenborg stuff, you're in the right place. My name is Curtis Childs, and I'll be your host. This is Dr. Jonathan Rose, co-host.
Hey, Curtis.
And we want to welcome you to the 2018 Off the Left Eye Giving Tuesday party.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they were doing, right?
Thunderous
Thank you, everybody.
Hey.
So we're pausing
here.
for applause here, and we don't know if that came through the mics, but it was thunderous, and that's a little foreshadowing of the kind of stuff we're going to be doing at this party here. The Off the Left Eye Giving Tuesday party is two things. First of all, it's a celebration of what's already happened. We want to look back at this extraordinary run we've had of talking about these complex spiritual concepts across social media and the response and the conversations we've gotten to get into. And it's also an opportunity for all of you to help make this thing keep going in the future.
Yeah, and so part of the celebration is going to be able to we'll have a chance to hear people who work both in front of the camera, behind the camera, and see some aspects of how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah, so the clapping people will be coming on, and we're going to take a trip down memory lane with everybody. We'll go through clips that people enjoyed making. They'll give you a little insight into how the process happened that delivers this experience that you've all become familiar with. We'll go through some props. There might even be some kind of live music. I don't know. And then, so that's the party side, which is the most important side. How you can support us while this is going on tonight and this week following. We have a special link for you in the description of this video. As part of Giving Tuesday, which is an international holiday where people support nonprofits as they feel like they're changing the world in a good way, we have a link in the description of our video. I'll show you exactly how to click it if you ever feel inspired during this hour. So first you would go in, let's say you're watching on YouTube right now, and you would scroll yourself down. You take a look maybe down below. There's a show more. Description. There it is. It's Swedenborg Foundation, gt.cosvox.com. That takes you to our Cosvox page. We gave you the link so you don't have to type the whole thing in. And then you just click that donate button, and we're off to the races. Thank you so much. But that's not the only good news.
Yeah, that's right. We've had generous support of pledging some matching funds, 5-to-1 match, to the funds that we receive not only during the live show, but during the course of the next days that this is running.
So if you give us $1, it'll be like the foundation got $6. And this matching thing and this link, as I said, goes through the whole week. So if you show up on Wednesday and are watching this pre-recorded, hello, how are you? Hope your Tuesday was good. It's still going. It'll go all the way through till next week. And I think that would be plenty, but as if that wasn't enough.
Right there.
So corny.
If
if that wasn't enough, we have thank you gifts that we give you at certain levels. So let's say you feel like what we're doing is worth a $25 donation. We got these sweet little sets of Swedenborg inspirational cards, which you have these, they like fit anywhere that's handy. And like this top one says, we are not human beings because of our bodies, but because of our spirit. Death is simply passing from one world into another.
Nice.
And you just have these and flip through them. This is a pack called Life is Eternal. There's one called Angels in Our Lives. Yeah, there's one called Words of Encouragement. And you just set these in places. And then what I find is with Swedenborg concepts or with any spiritual truth, like water, you got to keep drinking it. So to me, just to have a little inspiration, like, oh yeah, remember that changes my day-to-day mood. So 25, obviously it's a thank you from us to you. And we want to thank, this stuff was donated to us by John and Karen Childs. Thank you so much. No relation. Okay, maybe relation. And that means that your gift will all go to the Swedenborg Foundation. And this isn't even coming out of Swedenborg Foundation's pockets. Speaking of that, if you decide, wow, I think I want to give $50, we have this awesome piece of literature that's called The Dove at the Window. And this is written by friend of the show and supporter of the show, Vera Glenn. And I read this book a couple of years ago. Really moved by it.
I did too.
And the premise is this is a compendium of people's spiritual experiences and then juxtaposing those with Swedenborg quotes to show, like, look, there's a common thread. Even this guy 250 years ago was having these experiences that match up with what people are having today. And did you know, we actually read a story from this book in a popular episode of ours, How Angels Take Care of Us When We Die. Third act of that, there was a story in here about a woman whose friend was going to prisons to try to help troubled inmates, and she was actually murdered during a visit there. And this was obviously, tearing her friend apart. And her friend especially was hung up on imagining, like, what were those last couple of horrible minutes like for her? How can I bear the thought of her being in that situation? And then she had her friend appear to her in a vision. And I think it was it might have been a dream, but I think it was a waking vision. And her friend was holding these like little jewels in her hand, these little shining stones. And she was saying, listen, everything that happened to me, even the worst of the worst stuff, even as it was happening, God was just turning it into, I'm getting goosebumps, was turning it into to sparkles and light. And that she sort of laughed, the woman who had been killed sort of laughed at her friend, like, why are you so serious about this? And she said that little laugh lightened her and freed her from this more than anything else ever could have. So that's yours as a thank you from us to you. A lot of cool stories in there. But that's not where it stops. There's actually a $100 level in which we will be giving you as a thank you this album, which was made by this gentleman right here. Jonathan Rose was kind enough to donate. He has released an awesome album of spiritual music, and he said he would donate. The first 25 people who give it that level get that, and we convinced him to sign it. He was like, I don't know if I need to do that, but we were like, yeah, sign it. So you get a signed, personalized copy. Would you just like talk for a second about what's in your album?
I'd be happy to. I was trying to think of how to do this exactly. I might actually do this by posing a question to you.
Okay.
From your sense of the world and media and everything that's going on in our world, how do you think people are generally feeling about the future, like the distant future, 10, 25 years out? What future?
People are freaked out. I mean, they think there's all kinds of sort of catastrophes are looming. They see worrying trends. I sort of feel optimistic, but I always assume everyone does, but I don't encounter that actually. I think a lot of people are worried about
and certainly the shows that you see, movies, they're all in this sort of gray, green,
dystopia
color, dystopian views of technology's amazing, but everybody's killing each other with it, and you're running out of water or gasoline or whatever it is. Let me follow up with a question, if I may. What would you say is Swedenborg's vision, or what does he get out of the Bible in terms of the future? Does he agree? Like, is it dark like that?
The future is awesome. I mean, according to Swedenborg, it's going to go. And maybe that's why I'm so optimistic that he says it's going to just go up and up to even to heights. Not like we'll get back to how good it was in the good old days. It's going to be better than
the good old days. That's right. He talks about heaven on earth. There'll be this love and this kind of presence of God and angel guidance, and all these kind of great things are going to happen. Well, that's really the theme of this album. And so part of the idea is that in the short run, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be turbulent. It already is.
Yeah.
But that it's leading to a very good outcome. And you just don't hear that very much.
Right.
And so the title of the album is Clear Shining After Rain. Mm-hmm. The idea being, and that's what this image is here on the cover, is that, okay, we might have a storm, it might be bad, but have you noticed how, like, after a hurricane comes through, sometimes you get the most gorgeous weather after that. It, like, clears it all out.
Right.
And it's beautiful and serene. This title actually comes from a scripture from 2 Samuel 23, and these are the last things that King David said in the Old Testament. And Swedenborg says that King David is an image of Jesus. He's a foreshadowing of Jesus to come into the world.
For a Christmas show, for other stuff like that.
And I don't have to read this whole thing, but at the beginning you see it says, now these are the last words of David. And then he says, the Spirit of the Lord spoke by me, and his word was on my tongue. The God of Israel said, the Rock of Israel spoke to me. He who rules over men must be just. So this is about leadership, ruling in the fear of God. And he shall be like the light of the morning when the sun rises, a morning without clouds, like the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. So that awesome. That's so beautiful to me, that thought. And so where I place the album with this artwork and so on is that we're sort of partway through that process.
Sure.
I want to make clear that this is actually my own product. This is not a Swedenborg Foundation product or something.
Okay.
I'm just donating this. I love what the Swedenborg Foundation is doing. I'm so happy to be part of it.
Swedenborg Foundation does not necessarily support the views of this.
That's right. A disclaimer. Yes, that's right. This is just my own.
Thanks so much.
But I want it to be about something positive, about what's going on. And so there's sort of an emotional arc that the album goes through, where it starts out kind of in the middle, and then it gets sort of bumpy and rough, and then it comes up into greater happiness at the end.
Right. And
I also wanted to depict that in the form of the artwork. I want to talk a little bit about the style of the music, just that it's all original music. There's 4 songs on there that are what you could sort of identify as gospel.
Okay.
There's 5 others. There's a rap that Chelsea Odner did. There's a piece that sounds instrumental. It sounds like Pink Floyd or what. It's all over the map. But what ties it together is this theme of good things yet to come.
Okay.
And what we need to do to get there. And I just wanted to show you some of the artwork that I got to pick out. Some of this was stock photography. Some of it was photographs that family members took and so on.
Stock
but
can
I
be
love
beautiful.
this image here. Didn't it say something about the tender grass springing out of the earth? And so there's the sun shining through this wet grass, which I like that. So I use that in the background of some of the things for the lyrics in the album. And here's another image from it. This was actually shot locally where there was this, so there's heavy clouds, but there's this hope in the distance.
I see it.
There, you know?
Gorgeous.
I love that. Here's another one. I love this shot. This is just stock photography, but you see the rain on the window and then out of focus.
Yeah.
There was a storm, but you can see the sun is shining. So
get that slate
it's
look,
coming.
yeah.
That's right. And then there's also just this beautiful image of the sun kind of rising, which is what it's all about. So it's about the increased presence of love.
Yeah.
That's what the sun stands for, that we're going into a more heavenly time, a more loving time. And that's what the album's all about.
Dare I say there's a little correspondence, Swedenborgian correspondence in that imagery there.
1 or 2.
I'm not trying to, overstep any boundaries here or anything like that. Hey, that's awesome. I really appreciate the donation. If any of you guys think that stuff is cool, that's just a bonus from us to you for your support. Thank you so much. I said we were going to look at clips. Would you want to start that with me?
Sure, I get to have all the fun. Okay,
I know
sure.
you're not prepared, but
Sure.
So what clip did you select for us to take a look at today, and why?
Well, a show that was really impactful on me was sort of a surprise to me. One of the things about the show is that you might think watching the show that we sort of have been thinking these thoughts for a long time, and then we just tell you what we already know. But this show really blew my mind. When I heard from the writers that they were planning a show about spirals, I thought, well, I understand shows about, I don't know, divine providence or your thoughts and feelings, where they come from. A shape, are we really doing a shape? How are you going to get like a whole half hour, an hour out of that?
We did it.
But I can't even really put into words what a huge impact it had on me. I think how I would try to frame this is that I've seen images, and I've had kind of a mental image in my own mind, that our journey to heaven is like this escalator that just goes straight up, like blasting straight up like that.
Yeah.
And I get kind of dizzy about, like, am I going to fall over the edge? Can I handle it?
It's almost a little claustrophobic.
Up and up. It's a little weird, And I've actually, it's not just images from movies, but I've actually kind of seen that image has been in my mind of like, that's what it is. It just goes up like that. The Spirals show really showed, Spirals of the Spirit is what it's titled, really showed me that no, it's about small incremental change. And it goes around and around, and you just come around to some place that's slightly farther than last time, and it goes on. And so I like the fact, so some of the stuff you're going to hear me say in this clip is thoughts that I was having like either while the camera was on or a second or two before that.
That's why we always have our finger over the cut feed button.
That's right. It was really blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of mercy in that idea. And another thing that I love about this clip is actually put together from 3 different parts of the show.
Okay.
But I love it's kind of a simple graphic, but what's cool about this graphic is somehow the art team managed to make a spiral that's going up on the top half, but down on the bottom half at the same time. And I just find it mesmerizing. And then eventually you'll see, the whole spiral turns up, so it's all going up.
Awesome. Let's take a look.
So here's that clip. And I love the idea that the Lord, there's something that's drawing us. The Lord is just gradually leading us through these changes of state.
Yeah.
And so it's gentle. We tend to think in a very linear way about these things, but the fact is, it's a kinder sort of slope than that.
And not okay, this is right, this is wrong. If you don't think the right thing, Swedenborg over and over surprises me by saying that God never breaks our ideas, even right. Falsities that we have. He wants to work with those rather than say wrong. This is the truth, and that angels will defend our evils and falsities because they mean something to us, and that they're too embedded. That Swedenborg maps out this amazing clash between heaven and hell, where hell is trying to accuse accuse us of things that even could be true about us, but angels are defending even the evil things because they're like, no, we're going to do this gradually, and it's just fine.
Right.
You know?
So it's like a little bit like the switchbacks, or even if you went up a mountain, to go very gradually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're coming down, you don't burn out your brakes or whatever. You know, just make that. You know, that's don't charge straight up.
That's right.
You know, more people will come on the hike if we go this way. You know, if we go around like this.
That's right. That's right.
Our heavenly mind wants to spiral up. That's where it wants to go. It's trying to go up and up and up toward heaven. But our earthly mind is trying to spiral down and down. By nature, it just spirals down. And so the two are in opposition to each other. You see this in the Bible when it says that the flesh and the spirit are against one another. You know, we live in that middle in between these two. When you live in the middle there, it's hard to tell the two apart. This action seems like that action. Is this a good thing? Is it bad? Would it be better if I went home right now or if I stayed here? I don't know. We live in this confusing world in the middle, and we don't really realize that those actions are the very start of a very gentle ramp that either goes down or it goes up. And it's gentle, it's just a gentle curve. But the things of the earthly mind, the way that it starts out in life, they want to lead us downward. And the center to which they're leading is actually a total focus on ourselves, which is really the same thing as hell. Whereas that upward curve wants to go up and up and up until it's drawing us toward the Lord. It's up and heavenwards. It's lifting upwards. So the cool thing is about the middle of these 2 points is that our actions can start us going in the opposite direction. Just by changing our actions a little bit, then we start our behaviors, we're starting that spiral. Oh, and now our thoughts are starting to change. We're coming into a different perspective. Oh, and now we're having more compassion about other people. We're being drawn upwards through that spiral towards heaven.
When the spiritual mind is open, though, the state of the earthly mind is entirely different. Then the earthly mind is inclined to obey the spiritual mind and to be subservient. The spiritual mind acts on the earthly mind from above or from within, and it moves aside the things there that are reactive, and adapts to its purposes the things that are cooperative. So it gradually eliminates any overpowering resistance. Then it reverses the spiral characteristic of the action and reaction of the earthly mind. This is the nature of that change of state called reformation and regeneration.
Hey everybody, welcome back. All right, so hey Tim, what's going on? Welcome. That clip was again a little look at spirals and that sort of thing. Could you scoot a little bit this way?
I am
in our
that.
Transition, and I haven't even introduced you yet, so don't worry, people. We'll deal with that suspense. But before I'm even allowed to, I have to say the following, which is Giving Tuesday. There's a link in our description. Thanks to Mary Richards, who just made a contribution we saw. Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. If you want to donate, open up the little description of this YouTube video. There's a link there. Takes you to our CauseVox page. Such things will help us very much. All right, so I'm hanging out here with Tim Bilger, who some of you may be saying, oh, I don't know Tim, but he's our director of development. And even if you don't know him personally, a lot of what you've seen and been able to experience has been made possible by Tim and his efforts. So Tim, do you want to just talk a little bit about what you are up to, or who you are, and what drew you to the foundation?
Who I am. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, again, my name is Tim Bilger, and I've had the pleasure of working for the foundation now for a little over a year.
Only a year. Wow.
Only a year, okay. And it's been a whirlwind tour, and it's been really enjoyable. I can't say enough about my experience, but I am director of development, and my main role is to raise funds and awareness for the foundation. Okay. Wherever our needs are, whatever the mission is calling for, and that's where I do my focus.
And what was it why Swedenborg Foundation? What drew you to us in the first place? You
know, it's interesting. I believe there are no coincidences, and there was a ad that was running on a job bank, and it just full disclosure, and I just happened to glance at it one day, and I decided to follow up on it, and as part of following up on that, I started watching the YouTube channel shortly thereafter and became immediately hooked.
So the videos did it?
It did. The videos did it. I could tell very quickly that the organization was making a very major difference in the lives of people. And that was meaningful to me to hear that. And that was the beginning of my journey.
And we're going to talk in a minute about like which was the first of those videos that you saw that had that impact. But before, okay, we're here on Giving Tuesday. And there may be people who are very familiar with it. There may be people who don't know what we're talking about. Or maybe they think we just made this up as an excuse to ask for money. So would you just tell them what Giving Tuesday is?
Well, we didn't make it up. But two organizations back in 2012 made it up. One of them was United Nations Foundation. They got together with another not-for-profit, and they started this initiative called Giving Tuesday. And it was kind of following the Cyber Monday and the Small Business Saturday and the Black Friday concept of giving back. And they thought, you know what, if people are in a giving spirit of buying things for other people, that maybe they would give to their organizations.
Yeah.
So Giving Tuesday was born in 2012. 5 years later, last year it raised over $300 million. It's currently operating in 150 countries.
Wow.
So it's an initiative that we wanted to get involved in and jump on that bandwagon.
So since we're on the bandwagon, why would anybody need to or want to donate to the Swedenborg Foundation on a day in which you give to nonprofits?
One of the main reasons I would say is because your gift will make a difference. Your gift, obviously, it's already been mentioned, it's going to be matched 5-to-1. We have a very generous donor, an anonymous couple who's donated $10,000, and that match is clearly in front. And so any dollar you give will be there'll be an additional $5 given.
Cool.
This organization could not operate without the funds provided by individuals, foundations, and some of our other donors. Our needs are as great as any other not-for-profit organization in many ways. We're sitting in a studio that was made possible by a donation from a very benevolent donor out of living in Canada. And if without that type of support, we wouldn't be able to operate and do what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah. So, and the Swedenborg Foundation being a nonprofit, I mean, this is how we do things.
We're a 501c3 educational foundation. Most people don't know that, but the Swedenborg Foundation is the name of the operating entity, and Off the Left Eye and the Swedenborg Life show is all a part of that.
And so in case now you're like, okay, fine. All right, fine. I'll give you some money. Now, this we have, again, I'm going to show you, this is how you get to it. There, you go down. There's a link in the description. And but I'm going to go even farther here because we already said that this takes you to the CosVox page. You can donate that way. This is just to get the matching and the stuff here. But if you click that little donate button, you will find that there are these package levels. We mentioned them before in connection with the gifts that we would give back to you as a thank you. But there's a couple others. Would you mind talking about those?
Yeah, so these are all the different giving levels that we've established for this particular campaign, starting at $10 with our gratitude, and then it works on up, $25. You already have heard we receive a set of inspirational cards.
Yep.
$50 will give you a wonderful book written by a friend of the foundation, Vera Glenn, Dove of the Window. The $100 gift will allow the CD that's been composed by our very own Dr. Jonathan Rhodes, and $250 and above will actually garner all of those gifts if you decide to make that gift. So any amount is actually appreciated.
Yes.
So
you might be thinking, oh, I can't do one of those, so I better not bother. But with the match, but also just with it being a way for you to show that you care, and for us to show, look, there are people that are interested, for us to know, look, this is changing people's lives. This is worth doing.
I truly believe the donors are stakeholders in the organization. So if you see so much as to provide us with either your hard-earned monies and you believe in what we're doing, you're making a difference, and you're a stakeholder as part of our mission. Thanks
to everyone who has done that so far. And Tim, while you're here, though, man, would you talk about the clip you want to show? Because this had something to do with your initial getting hooked on Swedenborg. Right? It
did. So the one of the first videos I saw was a video called "Who Was Swedenborg?"
Okay.
And when you see it, you'll understand, I think, why. But it really provided someone in my shoes with a pretty clear understanding of who Swedenborg was in a very short amount of time.
Had you heard of Swedenborg at all before this?
I had not, admittedly.
So coming in cold.
I came in completely cold. Okay. This video to me provided some depth as to who the person was. Which is actually an incredible story. You'll see it in the clip if you've not seen this already. This clip is one of our most viewed. I think it's 102,000 views to date. It came out originally in 2013, and it's by far my favorite, and it's what really connected me with him early on.
I'm going to give you a little bit of unknown history about that clip. So this was one of the first videos that we ever made once the Off the Left Eye channel got taken up by Swedenborg Foundation. Maybe it was the third or fourth one. And it was actually based off, I had seen Jonathan Rose give us talk about Swedenborg, to some people, and just listing all these things. He was a magician, as you'll see in a second. Right. And he was a super magician. I forget exactly what he said. But and I remember, it's just to a little group, and I remember going up to him and like, hey, we should make that a video. And then he had gotten an email from somebody or something saying, hey, you need to make a video. Who was Swedenborg? What should I read? And so it turns out a lot of people have that question, and it's been an awesome tool to plug people in. A lot of people have, and I've had many conversations with people who have asked me, where can I find out more about Swedenborg? And I always direct them to this video. Another bit of unknown trivia is that when I was first working at Swedenborg Foundation, and I was working on the Heaven and Hell Facebook page, and I had made some videos before, but I wasn't making them for Swedenborg Foundation. And I originally thought, okay, let's start making videos at Swedenborg Foundation to answer these questions we get over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Because you want to give these in-depth answers, and the beautiful thing about video is you can have just a really packed answer here, and instead of having to retype it out and give incomplete things, you can now just link people. That's part of what we're trying to do with our whole catalog. So you can say to somebody, hey, someone says, what about this? What about life after death? What about the purpose of life? What about God? And instead of you can send them to resources. So that's the plan. So let's take a look at the video that hooked Tim Bilger.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rose, series editor of the New Century edition of the works of Emanuel Swedenborg. So maybe you've heard or read something interesting about this Emanuel Swedenborg, and you want to know more. Well, perhaps the most basic thing you should know, just for purposes of light conversation, is that Swedenborg was an 18th century Swedish scientist, philosopher, and theologian. Born 1688, died 1772. The next thing you should probably know is that he was brilliant. He was what people call a universal genius, a polymath, a Renaissance man, ahead of his time. For instance, he was a submarine designer before there was such a thing, a psychologist 140 years before Freud, an aeronautical engineer 190 years before the Wright brothers. He was a mathematician, geologist, metallurgist, mineralogist, crystallographer, anatomist, botanist, chemist, physicist, cosmologist, astronomer. I'm not making this up, this is very well documented. He was an author, inventor, legislator, mining engineer, economist, editor, a poet, and a musician. He came up with the first rational design for flight and made anatomical discoveries that were well ahead of their time. He published 14,000 pages and left another 28,000 pages in manuscript. So he was one of those types. But perhaps the most important but also controversial thing about him was that he claimed that in his mid-50s he had a spiritual awakening that opened the afterlife to him while he was still alive in this world. He was not just alive, but functioning with indefatigable energy. You could think of him as having a near-death experience that went on for 29 years while he was living his daily life, seeing friends, participating in the Swedish government, and writing more books. After his spiritual transition, he wrote and published 25 volumes that contained 3.5 million Latin words. Why Latin? Because it was the equivalent then of English today. It was the most universal language at the time. He wrote and published with an urgency because he had a message for the whole human race. What he wrote draws on the Bible, reasoning, and his own spiritual experiences to present a refreshing take on Christianity and spirituality. His works give unique perspectives on the nature of God, the spiritual world, the Bible, the human mind, and the path to salvation. They've been a source of inspiration to many great thinkers and artists since. So where in all those volumes, that embarrassment of riches, is one to start? Here are 5 recommendations depending on what you're interested in. Heaven and Hell is Swedenborg's most popular book. It tells us what it is like to die. Swedenborg says the actual experience of death is a beautiful and peaceful transition, and all people are met and welcomed by angels. He says that world is more real than this one. There's a kind of geography of love in that world. Everyone is placed according to what they truly love the most. Our choices in this world and the state of our own hearts determine our eternal outcome there. Infants and children who die grow up into young adults there, while older folks grow younger and regain their health and vigor. Swedenborg gets into the language and writing and music in that world, what the homes and environments look like, and even how things look and sound and smell. Check it out. Divine Love and Wisdom is a book about the essence of things. In it, Swedenborg describes in detail the nature of the two fundamental properties of God, love and wisdom. He examines what might be called the philosophy of creation, including the goal behind creation itself, quote, an eternal union of the Creator with the created universe, end quote. He explores the relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds, asserting that in the way our sun brings light and heat to our world, we can see an image of how God's love and wisdom radiate throughout the spiritual world, bringing life wherever they are received. An unusual feature of the book is an extended look at the way the heart and lungs in the human body relate symbolically to the faculties of love and wisdom in the heart and mind. Divine Providence, despite being one of his shorter works, takes on what might be the most daunting challenge in spirituality, solving the so-called problem of evil. That is, reconciling the notion of a loving God that runs the universe with the existence of the evil, hardship, and suffering that so many have to endure. If God is truly all-loving and all-powerful, why aren't we all rich, happy, and living the life of our dreams? Swedenborg's response contains numerous insights, including the point that God is constantly acting with our eternal welfare in mind. Just as a young child with parents who take them to get a painful shot or limit their access to candy perhaps couldn't see the love behind these actions, it can be hard for us in life to discern which things are good, not just for our bodies, finances, and reputations, but good for our souls. Divine Providence is also something of a self-help book, showing what the individual needs to do in order to change inwardly. True Christianity, as the name might suggest, is Swedenborg's effort to correct, repair, and rejuvenate the Christian church of his time. Throughout his works, he often laments what he saw as the violent, divisive, condemning, empty nature of the Protestantism that held sway in much of Europe at the time, while simultaneously casting a grand, uplifting, transcendent vision of what organized religion could be. In this, his final book, he provides insights regarding the nature of God and of the Trinity, how and why Jesus redeemed the human race, the nature of the Bible, how faith and good works contribute to salvation, the true nature of repentance and how to practice it, and the second coming and the New Jerusalem. The tone of the work is often blunt and confrontational, and when it resorts to reducing opposing arguments to absurdity, devastatingly biting and witty. It's recommended for those with a particular interest in exploring Swedenborg's theological views and seeing the biblical support he offers for them. It also includes extensive accounts of Swedenborg's spiritual experiences. In the multi-volume work Secrets of Heaven, Swedenborg, in an unexpected, intriguing, and elegant way, offers a solution to what could be called the problem of the Bible. Although the Bible may well be the most widely circulated book on the planet, providing comfort, inspiration, and serving as a sacred text to millions, it has come under fire, particularly recently, for its self-contradictions, the seemingly immoral actions committed by people and God, and its conflict with modern science. Swedenborg's thesis, spelled out in staggering detail over the course of 15 volumes, is that just as Jesus often spoke in parables, concealing a deeper meaning, the Bible itself holds a deeper spiritual meaning that deals not with warring peoples and travels through the desert, but with the struggles and journeys inside our own minds. The creation story in Genesis is not a six-day assemblage of the physical universe, but is the story of our rebirth, how God leads us from the dark, formless void of self-centeredness and materialism into a living, growing mindset where true ideas and altruistic actions thrive. Secrets of Heaven also includes accounts of Swedenborg's visions, his spiritual anthropology, specifically his descriptions of the spiritual states of the earliest people, and much more. It is truly an epic journey to take, and a bedrock on which stands much of the rest of Swedenborg's worldview. So Swedenborg was a fascinating and productive author. If you want to see for yourself, click on any title here that appeals to you and download a free ebook. There's no gimmick, no bait and switch. We're the Swedenborg Foundation, and our mission is to make this information more widely known.
And that extra long ending is like when we first put that video out, you could click on those books and you would download them all, but YouTube killed that feature. So that's why it ends like that. Thank you, everybody. I want to say thanks for the donations that have been coming in. Really appreciate it. Just a quick shout out, Tacitus, Ian, Janina, Julie, Alan, Craig, Kendall, Tim, Norman, Jack, and somebody named Anonymous has been given quite a few times. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, everybody. If you're just tuning in, you can support us by checking out the link, the donate link, and say show more in the video description, and it'll be right there. Okay, now we're going to take a look at, in our programming, we try to describe ideas in any way we can, and sometimes it's through the universal language of show props. So we're going to have Chelsea now take us through some of the props that have made the episodes oh so special. Hey, Chelsea, what's going on?
Hey, Curtis. Thanks so much, and hi, everyone. I'm here in front of a table covered in an assortment of props from our show, and like Curtis said, we love to use props because our whole point is to we work so hard to try to make Swedenborg's ideas understandable and accessible to people, and props help out with that a lot. And then once we've used them, we feel so attached to them because they've done such good service for us. So we sort of can't let go of them. So we save pretty much all of the props that we use for our show. And so there's a variety of them sitting in front of me, but I'm going to tell you about some of them. This one right in front of me is adorable and plain, and this is from our show, The Meaning of the Book of Revelation, 7 Churches. And this is a great example of how you can do a lot with a little. With just a cardboard box and a Sharpie and a little bottle cap, we were able to create this apocalypse revealed code breaker machine. Because in that show, we were going through the letters of the 7 churches, and there's one in here. It's going to be noisy, but so we created this little thing where like Jonathan and Curtis would get letters, and then they could put it into the machine, and it would translate the literal text of the letter into either the summary, which are these wonderful written things by Karen Childs, where she just digested the internal sense of the inner meaning of each of the letters, or the detail, going image by image through the whole thing. We're still saving that bottle cap. And so this is just a treasure of one of our props because people really loved it. Like, it just helped a lot to just be like, stick it in there, and then we can get the internal sense from there. Another one here is this frame that says Theater in Heaven, and this is from our show, I guess it was called Is There Art in Heaven? Or no, The Art in Heaven? Art in Heaven? I think it's just Art in Heaven. Anyway, and this is a memorable show because it was the first time that we went from place to place. We normally, we'd just have Curtis in the studio or something, but then we got a little bit bold and we thought, hey, let's go to the Bernathen Cathedral, which is nearby, and showcase some of the great architecture there, and then other venues around Bernathen where we are, and to have them sort of go on this spiritual tour, or tour of the spiritual world, seeing what kinds of sculpture is there, architecture, music, and writing. And for this, though, if you watch that show, you don't see the theater because it was a tragic time when the sound was lost from the shoot that we did for the Theater in Heaven. But that just means we can use that stuff again for another show sometime because it was fabulous. Jonathan and Curtis were in costumes, so that's going to happen someday. And then moving over here, these are a few different props from our the Spirituality of Aliens show. And for this one, we really turned it up to 11. By this time, we had the great Shiloh Silverman working with us, who is currently behind the camera that you're seeing me through right now. And he turned our studio into a 80s spaceship, utilizing the wares of the Bernathen thrift shop. And then we got some gloves for Curtis's space suit, and we used a Tyvek suit. This is a special, speaking of going overboard, I embroidered a logo for the Swedenborg Foundation, Space Force. And so this actually is built, is the Swedenborg Foundation logo just turned into like a little NASA type thing on the Tyvek suit. And I don't know if I'll ever stop getting ads now on the internet for these sorts of children's space helmets. And the last one I want to tell you about is this one, also a Shiloh specialty. and this is part of what I love about working on this show and for the Swedenborg Foundation is like, never in a million of years would I come up with this for what we were trying to accomplish. But Shiloh's mind said, oh, we need this like, you know, smoothie thing that really is gross and not good for you, but that it sort of shows that, you know, it's not all just about what somebody tries to advertise to you is good. And he created these labels and taped them over seltzer bottles. And it says trans fat power smoothie. And so now this is a treasured edition in uranium green on our props shelf. And as the story goes, our dear actor for that skit was Dave Hyam, and he had to drink a lot of seltzer. But we saved, I guess this might be the only can we saved, but we saved it because it's special to us now. So there are so many, and like I said, all of them are just, you know, vessels for being able to convey this, you know, powerful wisdom that we all find so helpful in our lives. So I hope that they have been useful to you, and we'll see what comes next. So now I'm going to walk around here. You get a little view of the studio, and I'm going to join my friend Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn. And you'll see his name. You are the community manager now for the Swedenborg Foundation. And so tell us about that.
Yeah. So I have the tremendous privilege of being able to build relationships with our audience and essentially support them in any need that they have online. So whether it's spiritual advice or emotional support or just being someone that can actively listen to someone's needs, I spend hours each day essentially just being with people. And part of that is also looking at data, looking at our audience, their needs, and seeing the big picture of how we can steer our content and align with our organization's goals and also meet the needs of our people more and more. So I came up with some pretty cool data to show.
Nice, yes.
So
know that you're the wizard.
Yes, I am the data wizard. And so, fun fact, we have 123 million minutes of watch time.
And so what is that? I don't even know what that is.
Okay. So take a step to the side. That's 234 years.
Now let's see
of combined watch time.
That would go back to, just kidding, I knew this beforehand, 1784.
1784. So if you were to literally go minute by minute back, all of our viewers have been watching, time travel back to the year 1784. That's how long our content has been watched for.
Wow.
It's an amazing story. And our data is so rich and it's so compelling, showing that people really are picking this stuff up. It's really, it's not only is it helping people, but we're seeing both in our hard data and our soft comments that life change is happening, and it's happening more and more each day.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so great to have you on the team, Chris, and just the presence that you bring to people when they're writing comments under videos and stuff. It's like, I love to go read them and just see what you've responded sometimes, because it's just so meaningful to see that dialogue and stuff. That's really great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so if you're on YouTube, oftentimes I'm one of two moderators that you'll find supporting you. So.
That's great. And so now we get the pleasure of sharing some, each of us will share a video that has meant something to us or has a particular cherished memory in our mind. Mine is, I'll go first.
Okay.
Mine is from the show Overcoming Divisiveness. And my memory, I have some notes here. So this, like I mentioned about the Art in Heaven show, how that was like we went into sort of new frontiers as far as production. The skit that appeared in this video, what I call the Hezekiah skit, was that another level up, essentially. It felt like, to me at least, from my end, because I had never tried to produce something on that scale, but it involved so many wonderful people, and Shiloh again was on camera and helping produce that, and costumes, coordinating shooting times, getting the use of the Mitchell Performing Arts Center in Bernathen, and then afterwards, a little treat was that we were trying to figure out what music were we going to put to the video, and it's like a quirky video where, so if there's this, the first still from the video is this slate, and it kind of gets a sense of the whole video. So there's first of all a little like smiley face, open mouth thing up in the corner, and at first, we weren't even planning to have this be the first shot, but when we were in the shoot for this skit, we were having to do this one shot over and over again, I guess, that we just sort of lost track of even the takes we were on. So I started getting creative with what I wrote on the slate. And I ended up writing roll 2K and take 18 because this story is based on mainly 2 Kings 18 and then to the end of 2 Kings. And the camera and all the actors are the grown-ups, but the kids, I got to go around and get voice acting of children, some of my own and a few other friends' kids, to do the speaking of the video. And so once we had that all together, it was like, what music are we going to put to it? And so Matt Childs ended up being creating custom music on the keyboard for the skit. So that's a pleasure. And so anyway, and getting more to the essence of the video, it's something I also love about the content we produce is like the Bible is so dense and has these super compact stories that you can really just sit with any of them forever. But the narratives, when you follow the whole flow of it, it's a total mirror for our spiritual lives. And I just love that we get to unearth that through what Swedenborg wrote about it and then digging into the Bible ourselves. And so this tells our story of being not only just our nature to be sort of self-focused, but then how the Lord leads us out of that and understands that and leads us to a heavenly sense of self. So anyway, let's watch it.
This is the Old Testament about Hezekiah.
Okay, this is a story from the Old Testament about Hezekiah.
Oh.
Go ahead, say it again.
This is an old story about Hezekiah. In the Holy Land, there's Israel and Judah. Hezekiah is the king of Judah. Israel and Judah was once one kingdom, but now they don't get along. But you need to know the backstory. Hezekiah's dad, Ahaz, was a bad king. He served other gods, not the Lord. He was at war with Israel and went to the king of Assyria for help and paid him to fight against Israel for him. While he was there, he really liked the look of King Assyria's altar and wanted one just like him. When Ahaz came back home to Judah, he built an altar just like the king of Assyria's. Not a good move. The king of Assyria went to battle against Israel and won. The king of Assyria made Israel his vassal. That's someone who needs to pay money to someone else. But the king of Israel decided not to pay 1 year. So the king of Assyria put him in prison, besieged Israel, and eventually took it into captivity. By this time, Hezekiah is now the king of Judah. Unlike his dad, he's a good king. He lives by the Lord's commandments. Knowing it's the right thing to do, he wants to cut ties with Assyria. He takes down the Syrian altar. The king of Assyria is not so happy about this. He comes to attack Hezekiah at Judah. Hezekiah pays him to leave him alone, but the king of Assyria isn't happy with just the money. He wants Hezekiah to serve him. So the king of Assyria pressures Hezekiah to do so. Hey, you be my servant. I'll give you 2,000 horses. But Hezekiah says, no, I don't want your horses. Hezekiah succeeds in resisting the king of Assyria, but he is scared. He goes to the Lord for help and talks to the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah speaks for the Lord and says, don't worry, the Lord will protect you. That night, the angel of the Lord comes and kills 185,000 Syrians camping. So the king of Assyria stops bothering Hezekiah. So Hezekiah succeeds in resisting the Assyrians. There's a cat. Back when the king of Assyria came for Hezekiah, Hezekiah got badly sick and prayed for the Lord to heal him, and he got healed. The king of Babylon heard that Hezekiah was sick and sent an envoy to him with gifts of his condolences. Hezekiah welcomed them in and showed them all of his possessions. This friendly exchange is really a picture of Babylon, inviting Hezekiah to join an anti-Syrian alliance. Isaiah knew something like this would happen and tells him that because he's made this deal with Babylon, all of Judah will eventually be taken into captivity in Babylon. Just as Isaiah prophesied. Some kings later, the Babylonians come and take Judah into captivity. That's why the prophet Jeremiah says, thus says the Lord, only when Babylon's 70 years are completed I will visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. For surely I know the plans I have for you, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope.
That's so great. It's really fun seeing that again.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of like an extra on that videos, the content of it, I really had to do some digging because it's chapter 18 and 19 where you have the king of Assyria coming to Hezekiah and threatening him, saying, I'll give you 2,000 horses, all this stuff. And then it's chapter 20 that it says, in those days, Hezekiah got sick and this whole thing. And I don't know, I just always read the Bible thinking like, well, this was on this part of the Bible, so it happened earlier than what came later or something. But really that in those days of chapter 20, and it's very vague because it just says the king of Babylon came, gave Hezekiah some gifts and stuff. But biblical commentaries say how that was really this bringing Hezekiah, wanting him to come into this anti-Assyrian alliance. Like, hey, I'll help you out. You've got trouble with Assyria, join me and Egypt, I think, or something, and we'll fight them together. But, and so that whole chapter actually sort of happens within the narrative of the previous two chapters. And knowing that, and I only know that from the commentary, but that fits all the more with what Swedenborg says the inner meaning of those people and characters are, which is that Babylon is like this self-centeredness, and Hezekiah is this state of ours in our spiritual life where we're willing to follow the Lord. We start rejecting, like the negative thoughts that pour in, and also rejecting acting, in a way that we know isn't right. Like when we're living by the Lord's commandments, but we haven't quite let go of, Hezekiah is very self-satisfied. And so like he even, when the king of Assyria comes, Isaiah assures him, the Lord is, don't worry, the Lord will protect you. That's like almost an exact quote. But then also that then Hezekiah prays to the Lord, and the Lord gives this great prophecy. But Hezekiah kind of wanted to just hedge his bets. Be like, well, I'm also just going to hang on to this, like, in case the Lord doesn't really come through for me, I know I can do it if I have to. Like, that's that sort of anti-Assyrian alliance that he has with the Babylonians. And I just want to put a plug for anyone out there that if you go read 2 Kings 18 and 19, I think those two chapters really paint a great picture with our process of dealing. If you think of the king of Assyria as the force of negative thoughts in your mind, it gives you a way to deal with that. And so I won't say more now, but that's just a plug I'll put out there.
Yeah.
So,
and I had a blast. I mean, I played a little role in that.
I loved it. Yeah.
And I've done some crazy roles in my day with the film set here.
Yes.
Anything from tipping off a chair to throwing buckets of water at Curtis.
We just pull you in for anything when it's like especially odd. We're
The
like,
weird
Chris,
stuff, yeah.
You actually usually just like walk in the door. We're like,
I just
hey, Chris
materialize when weird stuff happens.
Yeah.
But this was a particularly amazing set. I mean, so much went into it, and what an incredible experience to just have a small part in that.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And so then to get to your video that you're going to share with us, I know you've told me before how it was the video, like your story of coming in, first becoming aware of Swedenborg's teachings and stuff. So will you say something about that?
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, I was working for an organization that was connected to Swedenborg. It was a college, and essentially I had no idea. I was hired as an employee. I had no idea who Swedenborg was, but I went online, did a quick YouTube search, and all of a sudden a video popped up. That's the video that I picked for today, and it essentially changed my entire framework of seeing the world. It was the first ripple effect of momentous life change, and it's led me here today to this organization. I just have to say that for me, Swedenborg's teachings are a blueprint for living a dynamic, loving life. And this video was like the foundation for helping me see that we are driven by certain things, and what drives us, what we love, and what motivates us to do things is important.
Yeah.
We can look like we're a good person and do all the right things externally out in the world, but what's inside of us, whether it's a love of ourself, a love of material things, or a love of being useful to others, if we get those in the right order, we can really have a meaningful life. And so for me, this was the blueprint that changed everything.
Nice. All right, let's watch it.
If I was going to have a really healthy day, it would be about prioritizing the types of love. There are 3 universal categories of love or of motivation that drive people. And it might not seem intuitive to label them this way, but work with me for a minute. The fundamental categories are love of usefulness, love of the world, and love of the self. The way we interact with them and the way they're prioritized in us dictates everything. But to really believe that, you've got to meet them first. So yeah, I'm mowing the lawn, but check it. I'm using one of those no pollution reel mowers. So there it is, an action. But what's the essence of this action? What's the love that drives it? Which category is it? Well, that all depends on why I'm doing it. I might be doing it so that I look good. I want people to notice that I'm doing something good for the planet. I want to be part of a superior, eco-conscious, hip, cutting-edge group of people that are like so much more enlightened than the rest of the country and are the real heroes in the great struggle for blah, 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 blah. Everybody, meet love of the self. As the name implies, I have love of the self when I'd give anything for the cause of me. My number one priority is to benefit the self, whether it's about increasing its reputation, popularity, raising its official or unofficial status, power, influence. I'm the first and last thing on my mind, the apple of my own eye. But let's back up. It could be that I'm not mowing for those reasons at all. It might be that I'm here doing this, but I'm not really thinking about this green mower or this green grass, but something else that's green. Love of the world isn't just the love of money. At its essence, it's also the love of pleasure, if that makes sense. Things that are visually pleasing, pleasing to the ear, pleasing to the palate, and all other kinds of intense, expensive, decadent stuff. When love of the world is in charge, that stuff is the goal, the highest good. Life is about creature comforts, about seeking out sensory experiences, of whatever kind floats your boat, or just hoarding cash. Maybe I have an eco-mo business, not because I care about the planet, but because I know that other people do, and I know I can exploit that to get some coin. If a better way to make more money came up, man, I'd ditch this so fast. So there it is, love of the world. Not so bad, but not so good either. Not really satisfied, living for future gratification. Meh. But don't we deserve a little bit more? I mean, can't this simple act, this little part of routine really be something transcendent, something inspiring, a genuinely healthy action? Yeah, it can. And not because I'm having some mystical experience while I do it, not because I do it exceptionally fast or well, but because, put mundanely enough, I want to do this because it's good. Because of the good this does for the world. I'm not loving how it makes me look, I'm not loving what it gets for me, but I've kept a little bit of crud out of the atmosphere. And so here a little kid takes a breath of fresh air that's good for their lungs, and I'm loving that. People can sit in peace on their patio, and I'm loving that. Oil doesn't leak into the water supply so someone can drink and not carry toxins around with them, and I'm loving that. I'm loving the work and the health for my body so I can help others. I love the lawn space I'm creating for the kids and the dogs and the people that will play in it, the feelings they'll get out of it. I may not even meet some of these people, and they'll probably never draw the connection between these two events, but I know the good this will do, and I'm holding that in my mind. The healthy kid, the clean water, the place to play. I know the function of this activity, its service to the common good, its use. And that's what it is to love usefulness. This is the sweet spot. That's high quality fuel for a mind. Now, if you're like me, you're jumping around between these three types of motivation all the time, usually without even realizing it. It's not that these other two types are evil, and you've got to get rid of them and never talk to them again. Like I said before, it's all about priorities. We're all born with these three types of love inside us, but who's going to end up in charge? There are three basic vacancies in us. Let's call them the head, the body, and the feet. The head's in charge. It calls the shots. It sees and decides the course. The body responds and moves, and the feet just do what everyone tells them to. If love of the self takes the head, then I'm running for governor because I want to be governor. I want that title, I want that praise, I want that recognition. Getting kickbacks from lobbyists and the salary won't be that bad either. And as for the purpose of the position, the legislation, society at large, the problems people are having and how I can help, the suffering I can prevent, oh yeah, I mean, it's good to do some of that stuff to get the people's affection. It's a good vehicle to get me where I want to go. But if love of the world is up top, then who cares how I look? This whole company exists to make me money. I'll fabricate profits to drive my stock up, I'll exploit loopholes, I'll cheat people out of their retirement money. Obviously, these two combinations don't work out well, for me or for the rest of the world. But if these three forces end up in the order they were meant to be in, the order that makes us healthy and human, then I'm doing my job in integrity for the good of the world, where I'm making my little donation to Habitat for Humanity because I'm thinking about what it feels like to have somewhere to live, the joy of having a clean, safe space for the most important things in your life. The tax break is cool, but it's not a deal breaker if it doesn't work out. If nobody notices, okay. If someone does, well, who doesn't like to be appreciated? And under the umbrella of loving usefulness, the other two can be in tune, laid back. I'm not trying to lecture you about it. I'm not just trying to say, don't be bad, be good. Everyone knows that already. But for me, being aware of the categories and cognizant of which one I'm operating from is like being given the way out of a maze. If I'm mowing for the first two reasons, yeah, what's growing in the yard ends up the same, but what's growing in me, it's night and day. Watch the way anxiety and tension follow these first two. I would never realize, oh, it's not about figuring out the minutia of trying to be seen as exactly the person I want to be seen as, or being surrounded with just the things I want to be surrounded by, which always seems like I'm getting close, but never quite satisfied. This shows me, dude, it's a trap. You're on the whole wrong freeway. the universal categories of love. I'm just trying to pass them along for you if you want them, and just trying to order them correctly in myself whenever I can. Like, just as an example, let's say I was making a video about the universal categories of love. Would I just do it to make myself look good? Okay, so what I want you to do is just like make me look really cool. That's impossible. Well, then just like make everything else look bad so that I look really good. Or do I do it with love of the world on top? Okay, so it says here that people are more likely to donate if just put in some violin music and like a please donate button. Or am I doing it for the sake of the information, to get helpful things out? Simply because you and I are probably going through some of the same struggles, and maybe with the right tools we can make some progress. And if I did make a video like that, would I try to make it look like I thought it all up myself? Or would I mention Swedenborg and his essay on the 3 universal categories of love? Oh, I don't know. This is getting a little too hypothetical, don't you think?
Hey everybody, now what do you think? Should we have some live music now for a change?
It'd be better.
What we might do is play a couple of excerpts from songs on the album. If you were tuning in earlier, you might have heard me talk about the emotional arc of this album, Clear Shining After Rain. This excerpt that I'm going to play next is right after the low point, as you just start to come up. And where it came from was that I was thinking about these biblical stories where let's say Moses is down in the valley and then God calls him up onto the mountain to give him the 10 Commandments, but then sends him back down. In fact, he calls him up and down a number of times. And in the New Testament, the disciples go up and then they see Jesus transfigured, then they come back down. It seems like, why go up and then come back down? Why not just stay where you are? Mm-hmm. And as I was contemplating this song, kind of in the style of a spiritual, started to form in my head, and Chelsea's kindly agreed to sing that. And the way that this is framed is it's as if the Lord is singing to us as we come out of our dark space.
Rise up, lay your burdens down. Rise up to hallowed ground, and lift your eyes and see my face, and feel my love for the whole human race. Then keep on laying your burdens down, and learn to stay on hallowed ground. Then take me with you and go back down, and help me turn this world around, and help me turn this world around.
Nice. The next one is another excerpt that comes right after that on the album, so we're climbing a little higher out emotionally. I was struck by this moment that you read about in the Gospel of John, chapter 20. It's after Jesus has been crucified, and then Mary Magdalene, who'd had so many problems and had been cured of 7 demons, she goes there, but she's distressed because she can't find his body. And so she sees someone walking around who she thinks is the gardener, and asks him in a distressed state, where is he? Tell me where it is. She doesn't realize that this is actually Jesus himself who's appearing to her. He must look a little different. She doesn't recognize him. And so he, at some point, just simply says her name. Mm-hmm. And wow, the scales fall off her eyes and she realizes who this is. And I love that moment. And so this song is called, it was actually written on an Easter Sunday, and came to me on Easter Sunday, and it's called When the Gardener Said My Name, because who she thought was the gardener. And we're just going to play an excerpt of it again. So
you're alive, you're not dead, you have risen said. You're alive, you're the Savior, you are the one, you are the one. You are whole, you are well, you've survived both death and hell. You're alive, resurrected, and glorified, and glorified. I see love in your eyes, and it makes me come alive. You are love, you are wisdom, you are the one, you are the one. There's a place like the sun shining round you, Holy One, heat of love, light of wisdom. You are the sun, you are the sun. You're alive, you're not dead. You have risen as you said. You're alive, you're the Savior. You are the one, you are the one. You're alive, you're the Savior. You are the one, yeah.
Now I'd like to switch to my preferred keyboard, which is right here. This is an inferior instrument. It might not look that way. But you see, this is color-coded, which makes it a lot easier to play, actually.
Belgian Steel.
Yeah.
This is a song that we're going to do that is backed by no popular demand at all. One time, to close a show on the 10 early signs of a spiritual awakening, we did a song that listed Swedenborg's 10 most common symptoms when he was having his turning into Swedenborg thing.
That's
and we thought we'd reprise it to y'all because what are you going to do? Click away? What's our numbers? Okay. So this is saying, look, here's the symptoms potentially you may be experiencing, but it's going to be okay, which kind of ties in with your album. Don't worry, this is not on his album, so you can still get it.
That's right. This is a much superior product.
Ready?
Yeah.
You might be sweating uncontrollably.
Even when it's cold.
You might be weeping in the night.
Sometimes for joy.
You might be experiencing involuntary prostration.
Face plant.
You might be experiencing gladness all over your body in a structured form.
My knees are happy now.
It might seem like everything is falling apart. Or you might just be waking up. It might seem like everything is falling apart, or you might just be waking up.
Unless we are engaged in doing good, as if we were doing it under our own power, we do not adopt it as our own, and so we do not have a partnership with the Lord. For a partnership to occur, there must be reciprocation, a covenant, as in, if you do this, I will do that. In order for us to be able to act seemingly by our own power, we have been given freedom, the freedom to think, will, and do. We have been given the faculty of reason so that we may see what salvation is. We have been given the faculty of will and the power of choice and determination. We have been commanded to act. We have been given these things so that we may act seemingly on our own, even if this ability does not actually come from ourselves but from the Lord. If we did not act as if we were acting from our own power, we would be robots, and everything flowing in would pass right through us. The Lord constantly presses and urges us to act, but in a way that we seem to act under our own power, for the sake of adopting the action as our own, and for the sake of partnership.
Hey everybody, so that clip was a selection from our online media coordinator, Alexa, who isn't here today, but sent that clip in. Remember, you guys can give. Just check out the link in the description, say to see more, go to our CauseVox page, and thank you so much to everybody who has donated. I get to be here now with our executive director, Morgan. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. It's a to be here. I am in fact Morgan Beard, the executive director of the Swedenborg Foundation, where I direct things in an executive way.
That's about
Sometimes,
right. Yep.
Occasionally, only occasionally. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the history of the Swedenborg Foundation, which Curtis already knows, but we're going to pretend you don't know so they can know.
Tell me a little more about this Swedenborg Foundation.
Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you about the Swedenborg Foundation. So what happened was, back in 1849, there were a bunch of people in a cafe, dark cafe, men in hats. Just it was a shady thing, Picture it, good. And they wanted, their great dream in life was, how can we let more people know about Swedenborg, right? So nothing has changed, basically. And so at the time, not having the internet, their solution was, let's print Swedenborg's books and just give them away for free to everybody, to as many people as we can possibly give them away to.
Right.
So upon that very solid foundation, the Swedenborg Foundation was born. And today we continue that tradition by continuing to give Swedenborg's books away for free, except now we do it online through our website, Swedenborg.com. Go now, download some books, educate yourself. And so in addition to giving away the works of Swedenborg, we've expanded that over the years to talking about his thought and helping people access his thought in new ways. So obviously one of the ways is the very show that happens upon this channel, the Off the Left Eye channel, where we exactly, I know, it's so exciting, where there are a variety of videos in which you just explore the heck out of all the different ways that you can think about Swedenborg's writings, and we're not done yet.
No.
But in addition to that, which we've just been blown away by the response to that over the years and the way that it's grown and the audience that we've had.
It's been awesome.
We also do translations of Swedenborg's works, brand new translations with the New Century Edition. Yes. Definitely woo.
Stuart's wooing in the background. Oh, you have a mic, don't you? Okay, you guys can hear him. Great.
Series edited by Dr. Jonathan Rose, whom you just saw singing. And by the way, I said, whatever you do, don't put me on after Jonathan singing, because I'm just going to be this horrible anticlimax, and people are going to be like, what? Why is she on my video screen?
But it turns out you're blowing him out of the water right now.
Really? Yeah. I think
no,
probably not.
The chat has voted.
The chat
Jonathan's out.
Has probably voted Jonathan to some kind of permanent supremacy. The remarkable thing about the New Century Edition is not just that you're taking Swedenborg's works and rendering them into this modern, accessible English, but just the depth of research that goes into investigating the history, the context of Swedenborg's writings. If you get the big, heavy deluxe editions, there are enormous numbers of notes. There's introductions that are intricately researched. Just this afternoon, I was in Jonathan Rose's office looking at a chart of the bishops of Sweden during the time of Swedenborg's life.
I have that on my wall.
Yes, as everybody should. And he's going to, in an upcoming edition of the New Century Edition, educate the populace about why that is important. So I won't spoil that for him. We also continue to publish books about Swedenborg's ideas. And part of what we try to do is bring as many voices as possible into, interpreting Swedenborg and thinking about how his ideas can be applied to everyday life, in everything from a scholarly context to just everyday, what are exercises I can do, what are meditations I can do, how can I better understand Swedenborg's works. So we continue to do that publishing in addition to the translations, in addition to these wonderful, awesome awesome videos. And everything that we do has been supported by donors. And I have been continuously blown away by the generosity of this community, the beautiful spirit that I've seen exhibited by the people who comment, the people who participate. And so I want to say thank you to the people who have donated, to the people who have participated. You guys are fantastic, and I very much appreciate being able to help support bringing all this to you. So
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. And you may be thinking at home, we still haven't explained why this bottle of wine is
We
on
have
here.
not. I think maybe we shouldn't explain it. Maybe we should
Mystery.
just let it be a mystery. No.
So this has to do with the clip that you're going to show.
It does
right?
have to do with the clip. So you may remember an episode that you did
Yes.
on spiritual fermentation.
good one.
And
Yep.
the concept of this was looking at the chemical process of fermentation and comparing it to the process of spiritual growth and spiritual regeneration. And if you've not seen the episode, you have seen the episode. If you have not seen the episode, it is really remarkable how in-depth you can get in the parallels of this process between what happens in nature and what happens in our souls and our spirit. So during the course of that episode, Chelsea Odner, whom you have seen a couple times on this episode already, with help from the crew, went through and made some wine. You notice this bottle is empty because we totally drank it.
Tonight. Just kidding.
Made a bottle. You can't really read it. You made a bottle of Divine Providence.
Is that funny?
This is genius right here. This is genius bottle.
Is it? Vote in the chat.
Vote in the chat. And so in the process of making wine, those clips appear throughout the episode illustrating the process of fermentation and the process that you go through. So there's an observation in this clip that you yourself make.
What?
Yes. That you yourself make that water corresponds to spiritual truth, but wine corresponds to truth that has gone through a process of being lived. So I thought that was a really great way to look at the process of spiritual growth, that even two people who are grown under different conditions, who come up in different environments, who go about their process of spiritual growth in different ways, that contributes to a difference in perspective, a difference maybe even in the way that they approach their lives in the process of spiritual growth. But it is still beautiful, and it is still wonderful wine, so that you can have all different types of spiritual growth. It made me think a lot about the idea of terroir in winemaking, which is that even though you may start with the same grape, the environment makes all the difference in how you grow and how it tastes and what the flavor is and the complexity of it.
Awesome. So another correspondence probably in there as well. Well, let's take a look at that clip.
All right.
Let's look at some more of our process here of making wine. You have wine which symbolizes, it's not the same thing as it being that, but it symbolizes sacred truth. That water is the truth, but when you have lived the truth, it becomes sacred truth. So wine is a symbol for truth that's lived from a love for goodness. So when we do something that's true, that's good and true because we want to, that's what makes the wine sacred, that symbolism. This comes about when we go through the process of spiritual fermentation. So that is the change in the liquid. And Swedenborg comments on it further in True Christianity 571. This is, again, talking about these two states. There are two states we all inevitably enter into and go through if we are to turn from an earthly person into a spiritual person. The first is a state of thought that occurs in the intellect, and that is our primary fermentation stage. That's when we are just doing things because we heard it's the right thing to do. The second state is a state of love that occurs in our will. As the second state begins and progresses, a change takes place in our minds. There is a reversal or turning point because then the love in our will flows into our intellect and leads and drives it to think in agreement and in harmony with what we love. As good action, and that's the second process there. That's the second half. That's the fermentation where this alcohol is beginning to be produced. We're becoming a new liquid. As good actions that come from love take on a primary role, and the truths related to faith are relegated to a secondary role, we become spiritual and are a new creation. Then our actions come from goodwill, and our words come from faith. We develop a sense of the goodness that comes from goodwill and a perception of the truth that is related to faith. We are in the Lord and in a state of peace. Doesn't sound so bad. In brief, we are reborn. That's the process. We have this new will that's leading us to feel things differently and think differently, and that is symbolized by this transition of liquid. Do I look like that guy? Okay. So I want to say thanks again for everyone who's donated. Just FYI, if you just got here, there's a link in our description of our video where you can go to our CosVox page, just click the little show more, and you get to it. And we talked about some rewards that you can get, which you'll see if you click the donate button. But there's a reward that we didn't mention before, which is that if you donate, I'm going to butcher your name trying to pronounce it here right now. So I just want to say thanks in addition to those who we've already thanked, for Todd, Lois, Mark, and then Ethelza, and then Jeanette. So thank you so much. Oh, and plus Jen, Ryan, and William. Thank you so much. And then one more, we got a large donation here, and there was this like beautiful, touching letter about, it was an anonymous donation, but about the father of the donor. So I wanted to read it for you, just in honor of him, because that's where the gift was made. So it says, "Dear Curtis, Jonathan, and all who work diligently on Off the Left Eye, I have so much to be grateful for, and one of my greatest lifetime gifts has been having a father who was a great, playful, encouraging dad, teacher, mentor, and friend. He taught me the value of believing in and supporting new ideas that could make a difference. Philanthropy was never a word he used. He was much just more matter of fact. Pay it forward was not something he thought a lot about. It was merely part of his DNA. Yet he was so gifted in sharing stories about the difference people make in people's lives. What we do matters. I'm so grateful for his mentorship and his memory, and honor, I would like to pass this gift of $1,000 to Off the Left Eye. Dad also believed that endowment was incredibly important so that uses could be performed at their highest level of creativity without the worry of financial concerns limiting the reach of the potential. With Tim at the helm of fundraising, I have no doubt that this seed money can be put to the right purpose in helping to create a foundation for an endowment for Off the Left Eye. And finally, each and every one of you is what makes Off the Left Eye the huge success that it is. Your respect, playfulness, work ethic, and ability to rise to the challenge are all aspects that would have brought happy tears to Dad's eyes. My wish for you all is that you continue to find the delightful spiritual magic that you bring to each episode. Thank you for using your God-given talents so that all of humanity might benefit." So thank you so much. We're so glad that you feel like this is a way you could honor your father by giving to this. And it's really touching. Don't you agree? As you can see, there's nobody in the seat beside me. And that's because not everybody that works on this show works out of this office. We have some people that are actually hundreds of miles away, and yet they still make really meaningful contributions to what we do here. And we actually have one of them on the line with whom I'm relatively familiar. We have Karen Childs. Are you there, Karen?
Hello, I am here.
Hi, Mom. How are you?
Hi. I'm very proud of you, son.
Okay. Mom, you're embarrassing me in front of the audience. So Karen is a staff writer and moderator here and has been for a long time at the foundation. Would you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yes, and first I want to say hello to all you wonderful people in the chat that I was typing to, and now say hello. Thank you so much for being here. And part of my job is, like Chris, I'm a moderator, and I have the privilege of responding to people who write into us with questions and comments under the shows and into the emails. And I'm always blown away with how, the amazing thoughts people have and experiences. And it's really a wonderful way to interact with the world through, talking about these Swedenborgian concepts and how they apply. So that's a big part of my job. And then my other part of my job is being on the writing team with Curtis and Chelsea, which is also awesome and wonderfully challenging as we try to take this vast information in all these books of Swedenborg that's very heavy and very deep, but very amazing, and try to distill it down into sections of information that we can present in the shows. And so that's really wonderful work and a continued challenge just to find how to say things, what order to put the points in, and just try to present it to the world to start a conversation.
Yeah, and I forgot that you are right now the one interacting with the chat group that's watching this very show, which is pretty awesome. So you can all say thanks to Karen for the good work she does in there. And I want to hear about, so this clip that you're going to play has to do with some of the writing side of your job, right?
Yeah, we're always trying to come up with what's the next topic. And I was reading through Swedenborg's Diary of Spiritual Experiences. And there's so much fascinating stuff in there. And as I started reading, I thought, well, I'll just mark pages that have an interesting story or concept that maybe could be part of a show someday. But the problem is every single page I was putting a sticky note on to remind myself of something interesting. So it hasn't yet.
That's beautiful, and it's true. It's there you could put more sticky notes, and it would be every one of those is worth marking.
Yes. So that didn't help me remember where things are, but just, enough would get in my head that I could go and find it again. And there was one really sweet little scene that Swedenborg described in the spiritual realm, where he saw some people that were being affected by a sphere of innocence. And along with that, they were a group that had gathered together that had been related to each other over many generations on Earth. And they were being gathered together kind of with this aura of innocence and joy and bliss and feeling the effects of that. And then they all went into heaven together. And it was just such a sweet scene that he was describing. Just this brief little description. I thought, oh, that is so cool. I hope we can use that in a show someday. And then we decided to do a show about reunion stories, which Swedenborg doesn't have a ton of those, but we found some and put them together into the show called 5 Reunions in the Afterlife. And so that was what the show that was going to be a part of. And the way that story was going to come in was going to be a Shada reading, which we have this, our friend Shada, who has this beautiful voice and narrates a lot of the videos, clips in the show. And we had a new staff member named Mung who came on to the team. And I happened to be visiting in Brenathan, Pennsylvania at the time. So I was able to meet him for the first time. And this was one of the first projects he was going to do. And so I shared with him the reading, and then he asked if I could just tell him just some idea of what we might like to see as far as animation goes or illustration. So I think you maybe have the storyboard I drew for him. I just grabbed
there it is. Yep, it's on the screen.
A piece of paper, okay, and just sort of drew something, and he made out of that simple, just quick drawing this beautiful animation with all these beautiful colors and movement. And it was just delightful to see this work that he was going to be able to bring to our team and create these beautiful, colorful scenes to try to depict or give us a little sense of that feeling of heaven and the spiritual realm.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, let's take a look at that clip.
Certain souls who had been with me were let into a state of innocence, and from it spoke with me through spirits. And they declared that it is a state of such joy and gladness that the human ear, eye, mind, and understanding is incapable of perceiving it, for it is their innermost parts that are moved. They were with those of their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and thus the whole family for 2 centuries back, who were together and had been let into that heaven at the same time. The joy is such as to be entirely unutterable, as they were now telling me through spirits.
Beautiful and cool. And I hadn't even heard of that number before that episode, so it was awesome to see that thing come alive like that and see a new wrinkle in Swedenborg's thought. Next, we're going to invite up here our technical director, Stuart. And Stuart is actually, you're all experiencing Stuart right now because he's pushing all the buttons that make this thing possible. Stuart, you over there? Hey, man. I'm over here. Hey, Stuart. Do you want to come up to the desk for a minute? So usually Stuart is the force keeping the show happening, and I just want to talk to you a little bit though. Let the people meet you. But like I said,
hello.
You're the technical director, which the thing will pop up for you with someone else.
Oh
my
gosh,
in there. That's what you do.
So much for job security. Really,
you're out. So you want to just talk a little bit about what you do?
Well, yeah, I'd love to. And the way I see it is, I get the privilege of bringing this whole concept, the works of Swedenborg, and just sort of the healing and this all the stuff that people get out of the show. I feel like I have the honor of bringing to you and being the vehicle for, and it's a really powerful feeling. Like, I mean, everyone's got their part in this show, and it's an amazing sense of teamwork here, and we're just. If we didn't, like, we all have our journey, like we all have had our past, and mine was technical. I did a lot of travel. I did a lot of video work.
Wait, we plucked Stuart out. Stuart was like traveling the world to all these exotic locations on the front end of like setting up Google's Hangout technology when it was something.
Well,
something.
I mean, maybe back
in the day.
Maybe.
Yeah. So whatever he was doing, I don't even know the right terminologies for it, but it was awesome. And now here he is.
Yeah, here I am.
So okay,
but it's you know how you see Divine Sight in the distant past, and we're not quite in the distant past, but I do feel like that we have just developed such an amazing collection of people here, just to be able to bring this wonderful news to people, and so I'm just really blessed and honored to be here. So so thank you, Curtis.
No,
for allowing me to be here.
We owe you, man. And so talk about a little bit about, you've got a clip that you wanted to play from the Meaning of Easter show.
Yeah. So. Primarily what I do is the technical side of things. So making sure the audio is working, making sure the video work and the stream works. And so my little motto is live streaming or the internet is the Wild West. So you never know what you're going to get on a given week. Everything could be perfect one week and it could be different another week. But
it's a Wild West that really, 10 years ago, a little ragtag group like us could never broadcast.
No, you'd need a huge television booth. You'd need big, huge cameras. You'd need big, expensive pieces of equipment, computers and all that. But everything gets boiled down, gets compartmentalized and compact every year. And so, but anyway, I actually got an opportunity to do some animation for this show, and it was not my first venture into 2.5D as they call it, so the story is actually it's about Jesus, and it's not the story that you might be familiar with in the Bible, because and not to, I mean, that's a fantastic story, and I know so many people are so impacted by the life of Jesus, and it's just such a powerful story, just the entire New Testament, but Jesus, all the works that he did, the demonstrations of how to live your life, how to love your neighbor, how to, help the people that really need help. But Swedenborg actually goes on to talk about Jesus' story kind of after the fact. Like what happened? What did he do? What did he do in the spiritual world, sort of after his story on earth? And it's a really, really fascinating video, a really fascinating segment that we did in this Meaning of Easter. And so I chose it because not only did I work on it and ignore the mistakes, because you'll see them, but it's just a fascinating history of the spiritual world. And I just find that intensely fascinating. And actually, we can all, by learning a little bit about the development of the spiritual world and we can learn more about the development ourselves. And so anyway, awesome. I think hopefully people get a little bit out of it. And we'll want to go check out the rest of the episode.
For sure. All right, great talking to you. And let's take a look at the clip. We're going back to our game board to look at what was happening right after the crucifixion. Essentially, there were there's us, see, on that planet, there's all of us hanging out in the natural world on planet Earth. Back before Jesus was resurrected, there was sort of this is after the flood, before Jesus was resurrected, there were basically 4 paths once you died in the natural world. The first one is that you could go up to the celestial heaven. So if you were really, really good, meaning you had this wonderful understanding of truth, you lived directly from love, a few people could make it up to the celestial heaven. Generally, that was people before the flood. It wasn't the mindset of the people. It was very, very hard to be like that. The other option that we always have, you still have it today if you want it, is you can go down into hell, be a demon there. You do it through only caring about yourself, hating other people, cherishing revenge towards them, all kinds of nasty things. So there's that option, but then there's a couple of more. There is this place that wasn't yet heaven. It was just this expanse, which is symbolized, as we're going to get to in a minute, by the promised land in the Bible. And there were in that space simple, good people. And it seems like that might be a great spot for them, but the situation was a little more complicated. We're going to get back to that in a minute, so hold that in your mind. The other place worth talking about is a realm that Swedenborg calls the lower earth. And this is where Swedenborg says people who, and this was what we were talking about in that video, people who were regenerated. These were people who wanted to be good people, were led by their thoughts to become good people, but they couldn't go into the celestial heaven. They didn't have that kind of mind. And if you know anything about Swedenborg's descriptions of heaven, you got to have the right kind of mindset to get into that jives with the heaven around you, or else you can't even really breathe. So these people needed a different sort of home for them. However, they weren't quite ready to make their own heaven. So instead, they were in this protected area that was outside hell, but wasn't in heaven, but was surrounded by hell. And because they were protected, so they couldn't be really harmed. However, hell bothered them. Hell could still get at them a bit, make life less than pleasant for them. They were trying to destroy them, but they couldn't get through. But overall, it's like living around a bad neighborhood. Some things trickle through. There wasn't happiness, okay? So there you have your scene. However, I said we're going to go back to the promised land. And if you're getting lost, remember, you can just skip back, watch this thing again. The promised land, it was more complicated than just those simple yellow people there. There were actually demons in the promised land, who, though, because they were up there and because there were these simple good people around, those demons, this Swedenborg says, because of the good people around, the demons could act like upright, decent people, because they were held in check by two things. One, the angels in the celestial heaven were tempering them, and two, they wanted to seem good in front of these good people so that they would get put in positions of power and prominence. So you had in there, actually, in that place that was going to become heaven, these sort of evil spirits and these naive people getting led around by them. And why would God allow like a strange mixture like that to happen? It's because there has to be somebody there, because the way that the divine, this is a lot, I'm glad you're listening to it. The way the divine connects with the human race is successively through levels, meaning first the divine goes into angels, then had to go through this place to get to us on earth. You had to have somebody there, okay? However, this is not an ideal setup. You have this sort of people being misled in the middle and not fully happy. You have the people down in the pit are not that happy, all kinds of trouble. So how are we going to clean this whole mess up? I'm glad you asked. We're going to do it through Jesus Christ. There's Jesus, normal person in our world. However, through the process he was going through in his life, became the divine human. Right? Now, I guess not a normal person, but human that was divine from the inside, eventually was this full embodiment of the divine. So once Jesus completed his mission on earth, which ended with the crucifixion, then, that Swedenborg says, in those days intervening, he went on this whirlwind tour of the world of spirits, patching everything up. The first thing that he did was go to that lower earth, because now that he had connected, see how he's this connector point to the divine there, he could pull those people up and through a series and have them go through this series of sort of trials like we all go through that they needed to, so they could free their minds up enough. He took them, was able to bring them into the promised land, and from there create this new heaven. And because of the presence of those people, the demons lost their ability to feign goodness, and they were pushed out. And from that, what was referred to as the promised land, just this potential, became the spiritual heaven. Did I say that too loud? The reason that's exciting is Swedenborg talks about there's three heavens. There's a celestial heaven, there's a spiritual heaven, there's a natural heaven. But the spiritual heaven wasn't always there. It's a relative newcomer. You know, that was made for these particular people.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Childs. I'm the video art director at the Swedenborg Foundation for offTheLeftEye. Basically, if you see a video, I'm art directing it, I guess.
I think so.
This is Carl.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Latin consultant for the NCE, and I also get to play around and do helpful things for offTheLeftEye all the time.
And she's beautiful.
Ah.
So I just want to quick talk about this background. We got this. We moved into this new studio maybe 2 years ago, something like that. 1 year ago. So let's take a look at what it used to look like. This is my brother. He's so cute and young, and you can see he's got a bunch of panels and stuff behind him. So we wanted to recreate that in our new studio.
Because that's just digital, right?
Yeah, that's all digital. That was he was on a green screen. So I started to make some mock-ups in 3D software, just to if we can take a look at that, great. Just to get an idea of what could it look like. So here's some examples of stuff that didn't quite make it. Here's some more stuff. That left thing was kind of looks like water flowing, made of panels and the right honeycomb. Yeah, and so what we ended up going with is this. Here's a digital rendition of what the set could look like, and it looks pretty accurate, except those handsome 3D gentlemen. We couldn't acquire them, so.
Notice the ties. It looks a lot like what Matt's wearing right now.
That's true. So this set was built in 3D. We built the studio in 3D so we could get an idea of how much space we had and what looked good on cameras and et cetera, what angles we should get and where the light should go, et cetera. Yeah. So I have Karadam here to talk a little bit about, so that you can see these this text is Latin, I believe. Some of Swedenborg's writing. And Karadam, why don't you tell us what it says? I don't know what it says.
Yeah. Well, this is a little tiny bit taken out of Apocalypse Explained, which is a 6-volume work on the Book of Revelation that Swedenborg scrapped and published a 2-volume work instead. And this is just talking about from Revelation chapter 12, where it's talking about the woman clothed with the sun who is fleeing into the wilderness. Per quod mulier fugerit in desertum, significator quod ecclesia ad hoc inter paucos, which means that the woman fleeing into the wilderness symbolizes that the church is as yet among few. But then it goes on to say the next phrase, where the woman has a place prepared by God, means that provision is being made for the church to exist among many people. So that's what we hope we're helping to happen here. Church meaning this sort of connection between heaven and earth where people have a true and good understanding of what is true and good.
There you go. And now it's immortalized. Swedenborg never knew it would show up on a set on YouTube.
You can see that Latin right there. Ah, Deo. By God.
Oh, look at that.
It's the other words that you can see aren't very exciting.
Yeah. And then
there's ecclesia above my head there.
Oh, yeah.
Ecclesia.
Look at that.
Church.
It's a little hard to read, but now you know what it says. So if anyone asks.
And then
you got these other illustrations. These are Swedenborg made these, I believe.
Yeah, we believe.
Here's the original images. These came from, where did they come from?
I'm not sure. Well, the first editions, when the Latin publications of first editions that Swedenborg himself published all have these beautiful little ornaments in them. We call them ornaments. And there's all kinds of line ornaments and big ornaments and small ornaments. And there's, you could make a case for Swedenborg doing them himself. He certainly was hired by somebody else to do these kind of things.
Well, I'm glad he did them, so I didn't have to draw them. I could just stick them on the background.
And in the top left, it says with care and labor, which means you have to care about something and you have to work hard at something to make it happen. You can see that little gardener working hard to make a garden happen.
He's adorable.
So it's kind of a motto or aphorism to live by.
Nice. So I got a clip I want to show you guys. It came from the episode How God Reaches Us. And we made a bunch of little movie trailers for books that Swedenborg made all in the same year, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What year was
1758.
that? 1758. So we wanted to make little trailers for each of them and have them all have little different movie styles to indicate how they all had different feels and different tones to each of these books. So we, the one I'm showing is Other Planets. And we made it have a little family-style movie, and with puppets. And you helped do some of the puppets.
Yep. I was doing puppets.
I liked working with puppets. So
that was fun.
Enjoy.
Hello. Oh, we thought you were one of those monks that were trying to convert us.
One man travels to the farthest reaches of the universe with a purpose.
Love for power goes beyond our world. There are these religious people trying to force the minds of spirits from other planets to believe what they do about God, but really, it's for the intention to make them their slaves. Other planets!
To restore spiritual understanding to Earth's humanity.
I'm going to teach my next lesson about God.
Which God?
Which God? As if there's not only one.
I'm so sorry. He's an associate evil spirit of mine. The Lord has granted me opportunities to talk and interact with spirits and angels from other planets.
Swedenborg Foundation presents Other Planets.
Your name is Swedenborg? Oh, you're an alien too.
It's pronounced Swedenborg in Swedish.
Spreading dairy?
Swedenborg.
Halle Berry?
Swedenborg.
Swedenborg?
Sure.
If you want to get the book that trailer was for, see the link in the description. If you want to see more trailers like that, click right here. And if you want to see the full episode that all these trailers came out of, get their context and the meaning, click here. What was that guy doing at the end there? Like, that's from the isolated, like, we published it as its own trailer clip. And when I see that, oh yeah, I'm back, everyone. Thanks, Matt, for coming in. I think, hey, they didn't fire us for that. We're never getting fired.
I guess so.
And you might think these people are goofing around, making up stuff like that guy burps in there. That's all in the book, okay? That Swedenborg, everything except the exchange at the end about Halle Berry. Swedenborg wrote all that stuff. So, Cara.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from you now. You have a clip that you wanted to talk about, and it's an awesome selection that was one of the most powerful experiences for me doing this show. So do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. I just couldn't resist choosing the one where Conrad and Paola Leslie gave us an interview after they lost their son in a attack in Nice, France, a couple of years ago. And if you're watching Conrad and Paola, I just want to thank you again. That was such, I don't know. I just have been very moved by your story, and it was so generous of heart of you to share that with us. So the episode was called Angels After Terrorism. And what blew me away was, so after they lost their son, they were looking on the internet for comfort, and they came across our show and found these things. But I grew up with all these ideas of Swedenborg, and so it's kind of like the water I'm swimming in. And it blew me away how this couple got so many of the key concepts of Swedenborg that made such a substantial difference in their lives, and just being able to cope and keep moving forward and live day to day. So I just started writing them down, like, oh my gosh, that's a Swedenborg concept that I grew up with, and it's really making a difference in these people's lives. So I just wrote them down. First of all, the concept that the life of our spirit continues after the death of the body.
Right. Big one.
Very clear about that right from the start. The very concrete idea that played out in their story about two angels being with us as we transition from this world to the next.
Right.
Very moving how that showed up in their son's story. Then also we can decide to choose a life of love rather than a life of anger or hatred.
And them having to do that in the context of their son had been murdered.
Yes.
But having to find a way around the feelings that came with that.
Right. And to just go that way instead of that way. He talked about it in terms of diverting water in one way or another.
Right.
The thought that our thoughts come to us from the spiritual world. And if we can identify the source, like if this is coming from forces of evil, not from any good place, and then we can dismiss those thoughts. That was very helpful to Conrad. He talked about that.
My favorite.
It's so awesome. In the middle of the night last night, I was beset with dark thoughts, and I could picture Conrad's face, like summoning his son's spirit, like, Nicholas, get rid of these guys for me. You know, that's
awesome.
It's so cool that we can help each other that way. Another thought about judge not. Like, no one but God can know the motivations in anyone's heart. So it's not our job to judge anybody for their behaviors, no matter how heinous they might be. Reflecting on our own motivations. Conrad has a cool little blurb about just how it made him look at why he's done the things he's done in his life. And then in the next show, the week later, they were guests in the show called How to Connect Spiritually toward the end of that show. And Conrad talked about the reality of other realms, which he was seeing in terms of like quantum mechanics and particle entanglement and stuff like that. And he was seeing it in science.
And then his wife was like looking at, he was coming through everything scientific, she was coming through everything spiritual, and they kind of converged on the Swedenborg thing.
Yeah.
And to me, part of what's so moving about this episode that we did is they're in one of the worst situations you can be in. And if the Swedenborg concepts are helping them in that many ways, it shows me it's worth sitting here and making a fool of ourselves for 2 hours tonight, you know, to try to, you know, see if anybody else can be helped by the ideas.
Exactly. So much. And the last thing that Paula talked about was that suffering leads to growing. And that's one of Swedenborg's concepts, is that we can't have any kind of spiritual growth without going through crises or temptations or trials. And then I wanted to end with this little clip. Conrad had this spiritual experience, very powerful, of an angel appearing to him. And it just seemed like a great encapsulation of the whole message about this new awareness that there's the level of earth and then there's the level of the spirit. And learning to put our focus somewhere else sort of helps with the pain of the earthly loss.
Awesome. All right, well, let's take a look at the clip.
His name was Nicholas, or I guess his name is Nicholas Leslie, and he was just the biggest, best present that we could have ever gotten.
Yeah, Nicholas was everything for us, our life and our light and everything. And he was an incredible kid. He is an incredible kid, because I know that he keeps going to live in the other world, in the spiritual world.
It's like I said, I was very just focused on just the material things, you know, like, you know, my job. My son was so expensive for college, you know, we never really saved. So I was like so focused and just getting work and building wealth for him. So I was never really into anything bigger, you know. And in fact, I have two stories to tell you about that. But one of them that opened up me to the other side was something that just took me by surprise. When I got back home and I was just devastated, I laid down at around 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, right before, you know, really late, you know, right before almost dawn. I had an visitation of an angel, and he came to the foot of my bed. And this thing was not, because I didn't know anything about angels, you know, I going to Catholic school and stuff. I thought like angels were these little fat little kids with wings and stuff, you know. But this visitation that I had was something thin and tall, almost as high as the ceiling. I mean, it was like huge. And I remember when I saw him, I could not move. I could see myself in bed. I could see my body tucked in. I could see the feet, but I was frozen, completely frozen. And then I just looked and I was like doubting, you know, I go, is this Nick? You know, and then he whipped out and they had these large wings, and then he went 3 times and went like this, and I could feel the air in my face. And he didn't speak with me, and I couldn't see the face. The face was a little blurred out. But all he kept on repeating over and over and over was, look through the window, look through the window. And it was so powerful that I finally snapped out of it, and I actually got up and I went through the window, physically looked through the window. but I was so out of it. I was like so in a daze. I looked through the window for my bedroom for like a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds, and then boom, I passed out and I went back to bed. And then immediately again, boom, looked through the window. And later, I try to figure out what it meant, but I think it really meant for me to start considering things in the other side of the veil, like the window, without crossing over. Because you could go nuts and get so deep into this that you kind of lose sense of reality. So he didn't say look out the window or look in the go to the other side. It's like stay here, yet look through the window that there's a higher reality. And that really was, it started opening up my mind for other possibilities, and it really kind of changed me.
You will never heal of this, you will never, you will always you will always miss your child, but it gives you like a hope, keep going to live this life. This is a very hard journey. This life, that's what I learned is the hurt physical life is very hard. And then, I learned everything I learned. I believe it now. I believe that we are a soul in the spiritual body, that we are doing an experience of this physical hurt. And then, and sometimes, the experiences are very hard. There's so much suffering out in the world. There's so much suffering. And then sometimes from suffering is where it comes growing.
So thinking about the suffering she's mentioning in the world, and that was certainly the idea that we can present concepts that will turn something like pointless suffering, or how could this do anything, to her having gone through all she went through, saying suffering brings growth. If Swedenborg's concepts can help do that for somebody, that's why we're doing it. And I just want to remind everybody that that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're telling you, give and support. The point of giving isn't make sure that we can have a shiny desk here. The point is that this is going out and affecting people's lives. So we want to show you some of that impact. But first, just remember, if you do want to donate, this our Giving Tuesday telethon pledge, whatever this is, check the description, say show more. It's a party, right? It's a party. And click the link, because, hey, we're trying our best to deliver stuff that's going to change lives. So click the link, show more, click the CosVox link, make your donation. It'll get matched 5-1. And remember, if you happen to have watched all the way to the end of this on Wednesday or Thursday or sometime in the next 7 days, the matching still goes. You'll still get a 5-1 match there. And the point of the gift is that it's going to make impact. We just want to share a couple little anecdotes that we get stuff like this all the time from you guys watching. This is the first one. I discovered, these are all public YouTube comments. I discovered this channel when I was questioning my life and whether it was worth living. But this show truly gave me hope and completely turned my life around. Wishing you all the best. What are we supposed to do?
Awesome.
When we hear something like that, except to say, okay, let's do this more and let's reach as many people as we can. Let's make it as good as we can, right? So do you want to take it?
Here's another one. Sure. These tidbits of wisdom, love, insights never cease to amaze me. I really pray you guys continue these studies, as I believe you're positively affecting more people than you can imagine. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. When my dad passed January 1st at 1:09 a.m., I found your channel. The only thing that gave me peace and hope was your channel. I played them before bed, and I was in tranquility. I love the idea of people being able to come in and just know that the vibe is something that I can relax to and
that's right.
And, fall asleep.
That's not the only person we've heard that from. That's right.
Thank you for using your gift. Forever grateful. I experienced such a profound experience before his passing.
That's potent. Just the timing and everything is astonishing. Here's another one. My son chose to end his life on October 21st last year. I'm so caught up in what he experiences and where he is. Your videos help me and bring peace to my heart. Thank you. Love you, Curtis. And I agree with that.
I love you too. We all do. I mean, hopefully that's come through as we've been here. This is not a pastime or a hobby for us, or just like let's clock in, clock out. That's right. This is what we want to do. This is, I mean, some people watching may be thinking, it's been 2 hours and 5 minutes. Are they done yet? We're not, but we are going to be in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is the most important thing in the world to me. And I'm just so glad
Likewise
that
for me.
I get to do this with you and with everyone, and we're trying to make even a little bit of difference in lives like that. That's what it's all for. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and being part of this and supporting us. And hopefully these first couple of years are just a little start to something that gets much bigger and continues to serve the purpose. So thanks to Jonathan. Thanks to all of you. The people are sitting around the studio. You can't see them. Thanks to everyone who spoke. And thanks to Karin, who's moderating, and thanks to all of you in the chat who stayed, and thanks to you who are watching after the live show. And we're going to be right back on our usual schedule with a live show this coming Monday, so we'll see you all then, and I hope you have a wonderful week in between.
Swedenborgian Life Live is Curtis Childs, host and showrunner, with co-host Jonathan Rose. Live stream tech and graphics by Stuart Farmer and Matthew Childs. Show writing and chat moderation by Karin Childs and Chelsea Odner.